There are places in the world where happiness is loud. It comes with crowded streets, bright colors, music, celebration, and the constant feeling that life must always be moving forward. But Finland is different. Here, happiness does not arrive with noise. It arrives quietly, in the steam rising from a wooden sauna on a winter night, in the first cup of coffee before anyone says a word, in the soft light of a kitchen window, glowing against months of darkness. And in the silence between two people who do not feel the need to fill every moment with sound. At first, Finland can feel cold, not only because of the snow, or the frozen lakes, or the long winter, when the sun seems almost unwilling to return, but because people here do not perform warmth in the way many other cultures do. They do not smile at strangers for no reason. They do not speak just to avoid silence. They do not rush to prove that they are happy, and yet somehow this quiet northern country has become one of the places the world looks to when it asks a very old question: what does a good life actually look like? Maybe the answer is not found in luxury. Maybe it is not found in bigger houses, louder success, or the endless chase for more. Maybe it is found in something much smaller. A walk through a silent forest, a simple meal after a long day. A society where trust is not a dream, but part of daily life. A home designed not to impress, but to restore. And a people who have learned, over generations, how to live with darkness without becoming dark inside. This is not a journey through Finland's most famous tourist attractions. It is not only about northern lights, snowy cabins, frozen lakes, or postcard-perfect villages. This is a journey into the rhythm of everyday life, into the forests, homes, schools, markets, saunas, and quiet streets. Where Finnish happiness is not explained by excitement, but by endurance, by balance, by nature, by trust, and by a word that cannot be fully translated, but can be felt everywhere here, Sisu. Over the next few moments, we will step inside Finland, not as tourists searching for beauty, but as observers trying to understand why life here feels so different. Why silence does not always mean loneliness. Why simplicity does not always mean lack. Why cold places can create warm lives. And why, in a world that keeps getting louder, Finland may be showing us something we've almost forgotten. That perhaps the deepest happiness is the kind that does not need to shout. To understand Finland, you first have to understand the land, because here, nature is not just scenery. It is not something people visit only on weekends. It is not a background for photographs or a place separate from ordinary life. In Finland, nature is the frame around everything. It shapes the roads. It shapes the houses. It shapes the silence. And over time, it has shaped the people themselves. Much of the country is covered by forests, not small forests hidden between cities, but vast northern landscapes of pine, spruce, birch, moss, stone, and water. From above, Finland can look less like a country built around cities and more like a forest that has allowed a few cities to exist inside it. Between the trees, there are lakes, thousands of them. Some wide and open like inland seas, others small, quiet, almost hidden, reflecting the sky so perfectly that the world seems doubled. In summer, these lakes become places of swimming, fishing, rowing, and long evenings when the sun barely wants to leave. Families travel to simple cottages by the water. Children run barefoot across wooden docks. Smoke rises from old saunas. Coffee is poured outside, and time begins to move differently. But in winter, the same landscape changes completely. The lakes harden into ice. The forests grow heavy with snow. The days become short. The light turns blue, and the country seems to pull itself inward. For many visitors, this can feel severe. Even beautiful things here do not always try to comfort you. A frozen lake is beautiful, but it is also dangerous. A snowy forest is peaceful, but it is also easy to get lost in. A winter morning can be magical, but it can also begin in darkness, end before the day ever feels fully awake. In a place like this, people learn not to fight the seasons. They learn to live with them. They dress for the weather. They move carefully. They plan ahead. They respect distance, silence, and time. They understand that nature is generous, but never soft. And perhaps this is why Finnish happiness feels different. It does not come from pretending life is easy. It comes from building a life that can survive when things are not easy. A warm room against a freezing night. A cup of coffee before the long day begins. A road cleared through heavy snow. A small light in a window when everything outside is dark. These are not dramatic things, but in Finland, they matter because the land teaches people to notice what is enough. Not more than enough, not better than everyone else. Just enough. Enough warmth. Enough trust. Enough quiet. Enough space to breathe. And the longer you look at Finland, the more you begin to understand. The beauty of this country is not only in its forests, lakes, or winter skies. It is in the way people have learned to live with them. Not by conquering nature, not by escaping it, but by accepting that nature is always present, always larger, and always part of home. In many countries, nature is something people escape to, a weekend destination, a vacation, a place you visit when ordinary life becomes too loud. But in Finland, nature is not far away. It is not locked behind gates. It is not reserved only for the wealthy or hidden inside private resorts. Here, the forest begins almost anywhere, at the edge of a neighborhood, behind a school, beside a quiet road, beyond the last apartment building in a city. And for many Finns, stepping into nature does not feel like leaving home. It feels like returning to another part of it. This is one of the quiet secrets of Finnish life. The land is not only beautiful, it is accessible. People can walk through forests, pick berries, gather mushrooms, camp for a short time and move across the landscape with respect. Not because nature belongs to no one, but because in a deeper sense, it belongs to everyone who knows how to treat it gently. There is a kind of trust built into this. Trust that people will not destroy what they are allowed to enjoy. Trust that freedom also comes with responsibility. Trust that the forest can be shared without being consumed. And maybe this is why nature in Finland feels less like a backdrop and more like a teacher. It teaches patience, because nothing here is rushed. The berries ripen when they are ready. The snow melts when winter is finished. The lake opens when the ice finally lets go. It teaches humility, because no matter how modern the cities become, the forest is still older. The water is still wider. The darkness is still longer than human plans. And it teaches silence. Not the kind of silence that feels empty, but the kind that allows people to hear themselves again. If you walk through a Finnish forest, you may notice how little it asks from you. There are no bright signs telling you what to feel. No crowds pushing you forward. No music, no performance. Only trees, moss, stone, light, breath, and the soft sound of your own steps. At first, it may feel like nothing is happening. But over time, that becomes the point. In Finland, Nature does not entertain you. It slows you down until you remember how to pay attention to the steam rising from a lake in the morning, to the smell of pine after rain, to the first sunlight after days of grey sky, to the small red berries hidden beneath leaves, to the fact that peace is not always something you find. Sometimes, it is something you become quiet enough to notice. This may be one reason Finnish happiness is so difficult to explain from the outside. It is not always visible. It is not always smiling. It is not always social, dramatic, or easy to photograph. Sometimes it is simply a person walking alone in the woods, not feeling alone. Sometimes it is a family returning home with a basket of mushrooms. Sometimes it is a child learning that the forest is not a dangerous unknown, but a familiar place, a place to respect, a place to return to, a place that quietly reminds people that life does not need to be bigger to feel full. And in a world where so much of life is designed to pull attention away from the present moment, Finland offers something rare. A landscape that pulls people back into it. Not loudly, not forcefully, but patiently. The way snow covers a road. The way trees hold the wind. The way a lake reflects the sky without needing to change it. Morning in Finland does not usually begin with noise. It begins softly, with darkness still resting outside the window, with a kitchen light turned on before the sun has fully arrived, with the quiet sound of water heating, and with coffee. In Finland, coffee is not just a drink, it is a pause, a ritual. A small act of warmth before the day asks anything from you. Many mornings here begin in a way that may seem almost too simple to notice. Someone stands in a small kitchen. The floor is warm beneath their feet. Outside, the street is blue with winter light. Inside, the air smells of coffee, rye bread, wool, and wood. There is no rush to speak, no need to fill the room with conversation. The day can begin without performance. Only a cup, a window, a breath, and the quiet understanding that some things do not need to be explained. At first, this silence can feel unusual to visitors. In many cultures, silence at breakfast might feel awkward. Something to fix, something to cover with small talk, radio, television, or a phone screen. But in Finland, silence is not always a sign that something is missing. Sometimes it means that everything is already enough. People sit, they drink, they look outside, they watch the snow fall. And for a few minutes, the world does not need to move faster than that. Then slowly the country begins to wait. In Helsinki, trams slide through the streets with a soft electric hum. In Tampere, people walk past frozen lakes on their way to work. In Oulu, bicycles move across snowy paths that have already been cleared before morning. In smaller towns, smoke rises from chimneys. School lights turn on, and the first footsteps appear on quiet roads. Life continues here, even when the weather feels impossible. The cold is not treated like an emergency. Snow is not a reason for the world to stop. Darkness is not a surprise. It is simply part of the rhythm. People dress for it, plan for it, move through it, and in doing so they reveal something important about Finnish life. Comfort is not created by avoiding difficulty. Comfort is created by preparing for it. A good coat, a reliable bus, a warm school, a cleared path, a hot drink before leaving home. These are small things, but in Finland, small things carry weight. On winter mornings, you may see children walking to school with their backpacks wrapped in thick jackets, moving calmly through streets that many visitors would find intimidating. There is something striking about this image, not because it is dramatic, but because it is ordinary. A child walking alone, a parent trusting the street, a city designed to function even in snow, a society where safety is not just a private concern, but a shared expectation. This is one of the invisible luxuries of Finland. Trust. It is not always visible in the landscape. It does not shine like northern lights. It does not photograph as beautifully as a frozen lake. But it is everywhere, in the way people leave space for one another, in the way public places are used, in the way children are allowed to grow independent, in the way daily life can feel calm, not because nothing ever goes wrong, but because people believe the system around them will not immediately abandon them when it does. By mid-morning, offices begin to fill, but even here, the rhythm often feels different from cities built around constant urgency. There is work, there are deadlines, there is ambition. Finland is not a country outside the modern world, but the ambition here often wears quieter clothes. It does not always need to announce itself. It does not need the loudest room, the tallest building, or the longest meeting. People arrive, work, speak directly, and leave space for life outside work to remain real. Because in Finland, a day is not considered successful only because it was full. A day also needs room. Room for family, room for walking, room for a simple meal, room for the forest, room for silence. And perhaps this is why a Finnish morning can feel so revealing. Nothing extraordinary may happen. No grand event, no dramatic scene, only coffee, snow, work, school. A street waking slowly, but if you look closely, you begin to understand that this ordinary rhythm is part of the country's quiet happiness. Not happiness as excitement, not happiness as escape, but happiness as a life that does not demand noise to feel meaningful. A life where the day can begin slowly and still be enough. One of the most important things in Finland is also one of the hardest things to film. You cannot see it in the snow. You cannot capture it in a drone shot. You cannot point a camera at it the way you can point at a lake, a forest, or a glowing window in winter. But it is everywhere. Trust. It is in the way a child walks to school without the whole street feeling dangerous. It is in the way buses arrive when people expect them to arrive. It is in the way a library feels less like a building and more like a promise. It is in the way public spaces are treated as something shared, not something abandoned. And it is in the quiet confidence that ordinary life will function tomorrow much like it functioned today. For many visitors, this may not look dramatic at first. There are no grand monuments to trust, no flags waving over it. No one stops in the street to explain it. But the longer you stay, the more you begin to notice how deeply it shapes daily life. A parent can let a child grow independent. A worker can leave the office without feeling that life outside work is a weakness. A student can enter a classroom without feeling that education belongs only to those who can afford it. A family can use a park, a clinic, a library, a road, a bus, and feel that these things are not rare privileges, but parts of a society built to be used. This does not mean Finland is perfect. No country is. But there is a difference between a society where people must constantly protect themselves from the system and a society where the system, at its best, is designed to hold people up. In Finland, happiness is not always a feeling. Sometimes happiness is a structure, a school that works, a street that is safe, a hospital people can reach, a published library that welcomes everyone, a workplace that understands life does not end when the workday begins. These things may sound ordinary, but for much of the world, ordinary stability is one of the greatest luxuries imaginable. And this may be why Finnish happiness can be difficult to understand from the outside. It is not always visible as joy. It may not look like people smiling in the street, speaking loudly, celebrating every small moment. Sometimes it looks like calm. Sometimes it looks like people not having to worry about every single a tale of survival alone. Sometimes it looks like a mother pushing a stroller through snow because the path has already been cleared. Sometimes it looks like an elderly person walking slowly to the market, knowing the city still has room for them. Sometimes it looks like a child taking off winter boots inside a classroom, stepping into warmth and beginning the day without fear. This kind of happiness is quiet, but it is not weak. It is not passive. It is built, maintained, protected, and repeated through thousands of small decisions that most people never notice unless they disappear. In Finnish life, there is also a strong sense of restraint. People do not usually need to prove that they are better than their neighbor. Success is not always performed loudly. Wealth is not always displayed. Conversations often stay direct, practical, and brief. At first, this can seem cold, but over time it can feel strangely peaceful, because when people are not constantly competing for attention, there is more room to simply exist. A meeting can be short. A silence can be comfortable. A promise can mean something. A person can be respected without having to explain themselves all the time. And in a world where so much energy is spent trying to appear important, Finland's quietness can feel almost radical. Here, dignity often lives in understatement, in doing what needs to be done, in arriving on time, in leaving people alone when they need space, in helping without turning help into a performance. This is not the kind of happiness that goes viral easily. It does not always fit into a thumbnail. It does not shout, but it changes how a day feels. It changes how a morning begins. It changes how a child moves through the world. It changes how silence feels between strangers. And perhaps this is one of Finland's deepest lessons. A good life is not only made from beautiful places, it is made from the invisible agreements that allow people to feel safe inside those places. The agreement that the road will be cleared, that the school will open, that the bus will come, that the forest will still be there, that the person beside you may not say much, but they will probably do what they said they would do. In Finland, trust is not decoration. It is infrastructure. And once you begin to see it, you realize that the quietest happiness on earth may not come from having a perfect life. It may come from living in a place where life does not have to be faced alone. After the forest, the school, the street, and the quiet order of public life, Finland returns to its most private place, the home. At first glance, many Finnish homes may not look dramatic. They are not usually designed to impress strangers. They do not always shout wealth. They do not need golden rooms, giant gates, or decorations meant to prove success. A Finnish home is often simpler than that, more practical, more restrained, more honest. But in a country where winter can press against the windows for months, simplicity is not emptiness. It is protection. A home here is not only a place to sleep, it is a shelter against darkness. A place where the body warms again. A place where the noise of the outside world becomes softer. A place where people restore themselves before they return to the cold. You can see it in the details. The warm light of a kitchen before sunrise. The thick socks left near the door. The wooden table that has seen years of ordinary meals. The quiet hallway where coats, boots, scarves, and gloves wait for tomorrow. The window looking out towards snow, trees, or water. And inside, the feeling that nothing needs to be more than it is. In many parts of the world, a home is treated like a stage. A place to display achievement. A place to show what has been earned. A place to convince others that life is going well. But in Finland, at its best, home feels less like a stage and more like a refuge. Not a place for performance. A place for recovery. This is why warmth matters so much here. Not only physical warmth, although that matters deeply. The warmth of a heated floor after walking through snow. The warmth of wool against cold hands. the warmth of soup after a long day. The warmth of a lamp in the window when the sky outside has already turned black. But also another kind of warmth. A quieter warmth. The kind that comes from not needing to explain yourself. From sitting in the same room with someone and saying very little. From sharing food without turning the meal into a spectacle. From knowing that love does not always need dramatic language to be real. In a Finnish home, silence can become part of family life. Not cold silence, not distance, but the kind of silence that says, you are allowed to be here without performing. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to simply sit. For visitors, this can feel unfamiliar, especially for those who come from cultures where family warmth is loud, expressive, full of voices, arguments, laughter, and constant movement. Finland can seem reserved, even inside the home. But over time, you begin to notice another language. The language of someone making coffee without asking. The language of a chair pulled closer to the fire. The language of dry gloves placed somewhere warm. The language of a simple meal prepared after a long winter day. The language of practical care. Here, care is often quiet, but it is not absent. It is in the design of the house, in the rhythm of the evening, in the way people prepare for the next morning before the next morning arrives. And perhaps this is one reason Finnish life can feel so grounded. People do not only survive winter by being strong, they survive it by creating small systems of comfort. A place for boots, a place for coats, a place for silence, a place for warmth, a place where the outside world can be held at the door for a while. When evening falls in Finland, especially in winter, the contrast becomes almost cinematic. Outside, the streets grow blue and quiet. The snow reflects what little light remains. Trees stand still, roads empty. The air feels sharp enough to touch, but inside the houses, small yellow windows begin to glow. One by one. Across villages, across apartment blocks, across lakeside cottages, across the edges of forests, each window becomes a small sign of human life against the northern dark. Not grand, not loud, but deeply comforting. And maybe this is what makes the Finnish home so powerful. It does not promise escape from hardship. It does not pretend winter is easy. It simply says, come inside, take off your coat, warm your hands, sit down. There is enough. And in a world that often teaches people to want more, show more, own more, and become more, there is something quietly moving about a place that still understands the beauty of enough. Enough light, enough heat, enough food, enough space, enough silence, enough belonging. This is not the happiness of spectacle. It is the happiness of a room that holds you, a meal that steadies you, a window that glows, a home that does not ask you to prove anything before it lets you rest. And in Finland, during the long winter months, that kind of warmth is not a luxury. It is a way of life. And then there is the sauna. To many visitors, it may look like a place for relaxation. A warm wooden room. A travel experience. A beautiful detail in a northern country known for snow, lakes, and winter nights. But in Finland, the sauna is much more than that. It is not simply a luxury. It is not only a wellness trend. It is not something invented for tourists. It is one of the oldest and most intimate parts of Finnish life. A place where the body warms, the mind slows, and the outside world begins to disappear. Inside a Finnish sauna, there is very little to hide behind. No titles, no status, no performance, no need to be impressive. Only heat, wood, water, stone, breath, and silence. The room itself is simple. Wooden benches, a stove, hot stones, a bucket of water, a small ladle. Nothing unnecessary, nothing decorative in a loud way. And yet, When water is thrown onto the stones, the whole room changes. The sound is sharp at first. A sudden hiss, then the heat rises. The air thickens. Steam moves across the skin. Breathing becomes slower. Conversation fades. And for a moment, people are reminded that they are not only workers, parents, neighbors, citizens, or strangers. They are simply human. This may be why sauna feels so deeply connected to Finnish equality. In the sauna, the usual signs of social difference lose their meaning. A person cannot bring their job title into the steam. They cannot bring their salary. They cannot bring the image they show to the world. The heat makes everyone honest, not emotionally dramatic, not loud, just honest in the most physical way. Everyone sweats, everyone breathes, everyone becomes quiet. In many cultures, silence between people can feel uncomfortable. But here, silence can become shared. It can become a kind of respect, a way of saying, we do not need to fill this space. We can simply be in it. For Finnish families, friends, and communities, sauna has often been a place of transition, from work to rest, from cold to warmth, from public life to private life, from noise to stillness. A person may enter carrying the weight of the day, the meetings, the weather, the fatigue, the unspoken worries, and slowly, with each wave of heat, something begins to loosen. Not everything is solved. The sauna does not make life perfect, but it gives the body a way to release what words cannot always carry. This is important in a culture where people do not always express everything openly, where feelings may be held quietly, where small talk is not used to cover every silence. The sauna becomes a place where silence is allowed to do its work. Outside, the winter may still be waiting. The lake may be frozen, the trees may be black against the snow. The night may arrive early and stay for hours, but inside there is warmth intense enough to make the cold meaningful. And then comes the contrast. The door opens. Cold air rushes in. Steam leaves the skin. A person steps outside, sometimes towards snow, sometimes toward a lake, sometimes simply into the dark winter air. For a few seconds, the body feels everything: heat, cold, breath, skin, darkness, life. It is not comfortable in the easy sense, but it is alive, deeply alive. And perhaps that is part of the Finnish understanding of happiness. Not the removal of discomfort, but the ability to move through discomfort and return to warmth again and again. In this way, sauna is not separate from the Finnish landscape. It is a response to it, a small wooden answer to a large northern question. How do people live with cold? How do they live with darkness? How do they stay human in a climate that asks so much from the body and the mind? The answer is not only technology, not only strong houses, warm clothes, cleared roads, or good systems. Sometimes the answer is simpler. A wooden room, hot stones, water, steam, silence, and the quiet knowledge that after the cold, warmth is waiting. This is why, in Finland, sauna does not feel like an escape from life. It feels like a return to something basic, something older than modern pressure, older than screens, older than the need to explain every feeling. A place where happiness is not spoken loudly. It rises, slowly, like steam, and disappears into the dark. To understand a country, you can look at its landscapes. You can listen to its language. You can study its history. But sometimes, the most honest story is found on a plate. In Finland, food is not usually dramatic. It does not try to overwhelm you with color, spice, or spectacle. It is not famous around the world in the way some cuisines are, and perhaps that is part of its truth. Finnish food was not created to impress strangers. It was created to help people endure, to stay warm, to last through winter, to make use of what the land, water, and forest could provide. At a local market, especially in the colder months, this becomes clear. There may be fish laid over ice, salmon, perch, whitefish, simple, clean, direct. There may be dark rye bread stacked in heavy loaves, not soft and decorative, but dense, sour, and practical. There may be potatoes, root vegetables, jars of berry jam, smoked fish, mushrooms, and small pastries that carry the memory of old kitchens. Nothing here needs to shout, but everything seems to belong. A bowl of salmon soup on a cold day can explain more about Finnish life than a long speech. Cream, potatoes, dill, fish, warmth. It is simple food, but in winter, simple food can feel like mercy. A spoonful of hot soup after walking through snow. A slice of rye bread beside it. A quiet table. A window darkening outside. This is not luxury, but it is deeply human. And in Finland, many of the most meaningful things are like that. Not designed to impress, designed to sustain. The forest also feeds people here. In late summer and autumn, Finns go into the woods to gather berries and mushrooms. Cloudberries, lingonberries, blueberries, chanterelles, small things hidden close to the ground. To an outsider, this may look like a peaceful hobby. But underneath it is something older. A relationship with land that is practical, intimate, and patient. You do not command a forest. You learn when to enter it. You learn what to take. You learn what to leave behind. You learn that abundance does not always look large. Sometimes it fits in a small basket. This is where Finnish culture begins to reveal one of its deepest words. Sisu. It is often translated as determination, courage, or resilience, but none of those words fully carry it. Sisu is not loud bravery. It is not dramatic confidence. It is not the kind of strength that needs applause. Sisu is quieter. It is the strength to continue when conditions are not easy. The strength to keep going through darkness, cold, difficulty, loss, silence, and uncertainty. The strength to do what must be done, even when no one is watching. You can feel Sisu in the way people live with winter. Not by complaining every morning, not by pretending the cold is pleasant, but by preparing. Layering clothes, clearing snow, fixing what breaks, going to work, taking children to school, heating the sauna, making soup, walking through the forest anyway. Sisu does not remove hardship. It gives people a way to move through it. This may be why Finland's quiet happiness feels so different from the kind of happiness often shown elsewhere. It is not fragile. It does not depend on perfect weather. It does not require constant entertainment. It is built to survive ordinary difficulty. The long winter, the dark morning, the short day, the quiet evening, the work that must be done again tomorrow, and yet within that repetition there is beauty. A pot of soup, a loaf of bread, a basket of berries, a fire in the stove, a person returning home with snow on their coat. These are small images, but in Finland they carry a whole philosophy. Life does not need to be easy to be meaningful. Comfort does not need to be extravagant to be real. Happiness does not need to be loud to be strong. At first, a visitor may come to Finland searching for northern lights, snowy cabins, or postcard villages, but over time, they may remember something else more clearly. The taste of hot soup after the cold, the smell of rye bread in a warm kitchen, the quiet pride of people who do not speak much about strength because they live it. And perhaps this is the difference. In some places, culture is displayed. In Finland, culture is often practiced in the way food is preserved, in the way winter is accepted, in the way silence is respected, in the way people keep going, not because life here is always easy, but because generations have learned how to make it livable, how to make it warm, how to make it enough. That is Sisu, not a slogan, not a tourist word, but a quiet force beneath daily life. A force you can taste in a bowl of soup, hear in the sound of boots on snow, see in the hands gathering mushrooms from the forest floor, and feel in the stillness of a country that has never needed to shout to prove its strength. But quiet happiness has a cost. Finland is beautiful, but it is not a fairy tale. It is not a perfect postcard covered in snow, caverns, lakes, and northern lights. And anyone who lives here long enough knows that beauty does not remove difficulty. Sometimes it only makes difficulty quieter. Winter can be heavy, not only because of the cold, but because of the darkness. There are days when the morning arrives late and the evening comes too early. Days when the sky stays gray. When the sun feels distant, when the body asks for light. But the season does not give much back. For visitors, this can feel romantic for a few days. Snow on rooftops, steam from coffee, blue light over frozen streets. But for the people who live here, winter is not only scenery, it is time. It is routine. It is something the mind and body must carry for months. In a place like this, silence can be peaceful. But it can also become heavy. The same quiet that feels healing to one person may feel lonely to another. A street with no noise can feel calm or empty. A person who does not speak much can feel respectful or distant. A culture that protects personal space can feel safe or hard to enter. This is one of the contradictions of Finland. The things that make it peaceful can also make it difficult. The space, the restraint, the privacy, the long winters, the social trust that feels beautiful once you are inside it, but may take time to understand from the outside. For newcomers, Finland can be challenging. The language is not easy. Friendships may form slowly. People may be kind without being expressive, helpful without being warm in the way some cultures expect, honest without softening every sentence. And at first, that can feel cold. Not because people are cruel, but because the rules of connection are different. In Finland, closeness is often not rushed. It is earned slowly, through reliability, through shared time, through doing what you said you would do, through showing up without making a performance out of it. This can be difficult for people who come from louder cultures, cultures where friendship begins quickly, where emotion is shown openly, where silence is uncomfortable, where warmth is performed through words, gestures, and constant contact. In Finland, warmth may be there, but it may arrive quietly, and not everyone knows how to wait for it. There is also another pressure here, the pressure of being called happy. When the world keeps naming your country the happiest, it can create a strange expectation, as if every person must feel peaceful, as if no one struggles, as if darkness, loneliness, stress, or sadness disappear simply because the system is strong. But real life is never that simple. A country can be safe, beautiful, educated, and well-organized, and still have people who feel alone. A society can be trusted and still have quiet suffering. A landscape can be healing and still become heavy when winter stays too long. This is why any honest story about Finland must leave room for complexity. To love a place does not mean pretending it has no shadows. Sometimes, loving a place means seeing the shadows clearly and understanding why people stay anyway. Finland's quiet happiness is not the absence of hardship. It is not a life without darkness. It is not a guarantee that every person wakes up grateful, calm, and whole. It is something more grounded than that. It is the effort to build warmth around the cold, structure around uncertainty, trust around distance, meaning around silence, and light around the long, dark months. This is also where many travel documentaries can go wrong. They show Finland as a dream, but forget that people actually live inside that dream. They show snow, but not the months of darkness. They show sauna, but not the need for recovery. They show forests, but not the discipline of surviving with nature. They show quiet people, but mistake quietness for emptiness. And sometimes, especially in videos made too quickly or too carelessly, they show images that do not even belong here. The wrong buses, the wrong buildings, the wrong faces, the wrong food, the wrong version of a culture that deserves to be seen with care. Because Finland is not beautiful because it is perfect. It is beautiful because it is honest. The land does not pretend to be gentle. The winter does not pretend to be short. The people do not pretend to be louder than they are. And the happiness here does not pretend to be constant excitement. It is quieter, harder to film, harder to explain, but perhaps more durable because of that. A happiness that knows the cold is real. A happiness that knows silence can hurt. A happiness that knows life does not become meaningful by hiding difficulty, but by building something steady enough to live through it. And maybe that is the deeper truth Finland offers. Not that happiness is easy here, but that happiness can be made strong. Not by removing every hardship, but by facing hardship with warmth, trust, patience, and Sisu. Finland is not an easy place to explain. At first it may seem too quiet, too cold, too reserved, too far from the kind of happiness the modern world often teaches us to chase. There are no loud promises here, no constant performance, no need to convince strangers that life is perfect. And yet the longer you look, the more you begin to understand why this country stays in people's minds long after they leave. Finland does not offer happiness as excitement. It offers happiness as steadiness, a warm room after a frozen street, a forest path that belongs to no one and everyone, a school where a child can begin the day without fear, a simple meal that tastes better because winter is waiting outside, a sauna where silence does not feel empty, a life where people do not always say much, but often mean what they say. This is the quiet beauty of Finland. It is not a country without loneliness, not a country without darkness, not a country where every person wakes up happy simply because the world calls it the happiest place on earth. But perhaps that is what makes its lesson more honest. Finland does not pretend that life is always light. It teaches people how to live through the dark, how to build warmth, how to trust, how to endure, how to need less, notice more, and find meaning in things that do not ask for attention. A cup of coffee before words, a window glowing in winter, a basket of berries from the forest, a road cleared before morning, a quiet person who shows care not by saying everything, but by being there when it matters, and maybe in a world that keeps getting louder. This is why Finland feels so different. It reminds us that happiness does not always arrive as joy. Sometimes it arrives as peace, sometimes as safety, sometimes as belonging, sometimes as the simple feeling that life, even with its cold and silence, can still be enough. So perhaps the question Finland leaves behind is not, would you be happy here? But something deeper. Could you live a little more quietly? Could you want a little less? Could you find warmth without needing the world to applaud? And could the quietest happiness be the one that lasts the longest? If this way of life speaks to you, leave one word in the comments: Sisu.